Thank you.
All right. We'll call to order this meeting of the Climate Action Plan Committee for Monday, November 4th, 2024. President by Hoy.
Stapleton. Barney.
Gonzalez.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Do we have any public comment? Yes. We'll go here first.
Oh, okay. Lucy Hitchcock. I'm in Pringle Creek community, and I just want to say my appreciation for what you're doing, and I think what we're doing in the local communities is similar to what you're trying. How can we get citizens to care about the climate and make changes? The change is gigantic that we're asking people. It's really a change of system to save the planet. And it's so big and people are resistant to any change. Often the first thing people think of is what I'm going to have to give up if I change, for example, to save the planet. So what I'm hoping is that we in the community can help be in conversation with you about which of the actions that you follow through on for the future that we can really convince our own people about. Examples would be composting, we talked to Julian about that, or the waste issues, getting down to zero waste, things that it would benefit our communities as well as the big picture. So I'm just speaking up for collaboration between the community and the city, and the city's doing great.
Thank you. We really appreciate your feedback and your comment. Mark?
Yeah, Mark Wade, live in Salem, and I just wanted to encourage you guys. The city needs money, so tax the things that we don't want. Gas, put a big gas tax. To drive up and down Commercial Street, you'll see that the difference between one gas station and the one across the street is 50 cents a gallon. So obviously, the price doesn't matter that much. So throw a big tax on gas and also natural gas. And then in addition to that, don't provide subsidies to any apartments that are going to be on natural gas. Just let everybody know this is all electric. And then you might subsidize and think of the future that if you made them put solar panels on, then their monthly bills are lower for those people in the apartments. So think of how we can save money, how we can get money. The other one is the airport is, that should be a money maker for the city. And right now it barely breaks even and we subsidize. So let's raise it, because again, people flying around those airplanes, mostly it's for fun and they can afford it. And it's the upper 5% of the income people are out there flying. Well, tax the hell out of it. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. We are now on to the Global Conference on Climate Change. Oh, did I skip over that? I did. All right.
80 minutes. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That's it, right? Oversight. And now we'll move on to the Global Conference on Climate Change. Robert Chandler.
It should be.
Wobbly. There you go. There you go. Hurry up. Can you get rid of the bar on top?
Yeah. Like I can do that, can you like save real quick? And I'll just put some on your side. No, oh, there it goes.
We'll make it work.
So you're sharing that climate action plan committee screen and not this slideshow.
Yes.
We'll make it work. So again, Robert Chandler, Assistant Director of Public Works. It was my pleasure to attend the 4th Global Congress on Climate Change in Lisbon, Portugal, in September this year. I'll just draw your attention to the asterisk next to Portugal. I traveled at my own expense. I basically rearranged some family travels and went there. My daughter lives and works there, and I took 2 days off vacation to attend the conference. It was a fascinating group. While there, I presented a paper co-written by Juliana. There were 55 attendees, 26 nations at this very small group. Almost all were from research institutions, universities. There were 2 of us from municipalities, myself and Juliana's counterpart from Gainesville, Florida. Just for a quick orientation, if you could see it, Portugal is up on the Iberian Peninsula, is the rectangular shape just to the west, and that's where Lisbon is. And what I'm going to do is tell you, give you the presentation that I gave to the people that were at the conference. The topic was local government and climate action promises and perils. One of the first keynote speakers talked about, addressed really the majority of the people there, and noted that climate science community needs to consider the practical challenges of implementing climate actions. And I use that quote in my presentation because it doesn't get much more local than us doing things. In my presentation, I made sure everybody knew where Oregon was, the sandwich between Washington and California. And within Oregon, there's Salem, the capital city of Oregon, either the 2nd or the 3rd largest city, depending on where you get your population, Eugene being either the 2nd or 3rd. 183,000 people in the greater Salem area. So in 2020, the city council declared that we have these 2 climate action goals for greenhouse gas reductions. A 50% reduction by 2035, and to be carbon neutral by 2050. And that's based on the 2016 baseline measurements. So those goals were established in 2020, and then 2 years later, the professional staff provided to City Council our Salem Climate Action Plan. And what I will do is talk a little bit about how we got there. Talk about how we got to our Salem Climate Action Plan, the process that we followed. It's a good refresher. Some of you were there. It's good to see how we got there. A little bit about what's inside the Climate Action Plan and some of the results from computer simulation modeling. We have 10 case studies of local governments implementing climate actions across the country. Our own lessons learned drawn from reviewing their activities, as well as our own experiences, and then progress report where we stand. So a timeline, we actually began creating the climate action plan before City Council established the goals. It was established in the council policy agenda that said, come up with a climate action plan, and that policy agenda helpfully suggested things like parking and parking spaces and charge parking, and what else might do, and whatever else you might think about doing. October, 2 months later, council adopted the goals. There's a little bit of discussion about this. Is that, do you get a goal and then you see what you can do to get to that goal, do you see how much you can do and see what that goal is going to be, or do something in between? When the decision was made, we're going to establish those goals. A few slides later, I'll show you the modeling that shows how we can actually get to those goals. We formed a climate action plan task force, 41 members. It spanned a large group. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Their work was completed about a year later. In December, we presented to council really the final draft climate action plan. But we also were still getting a lot of comments. So we said, well, here's the draft. Let's hold off for a couple months and we'll come back to you again. And so in February, we presented and City Council accepted our climate action plan. Oh, and every good story has a subplot. Ours was COVID-19. It hit, was declared a worldwide pandemic earlier in that year. The bulk of our work was done online. We learned about social media, social interactions. I don't know how many times we had to say unmute. Our consultant was out of Lincoln, Nebraska. We had staff down in California. It really helped assembling 41 people from around the state to meet with us. Actually, it was a good thing. It had pluses and minuses, but overall, COVID-19 served us well. Well, we reacted well to and adjusted to get a climate action plan. That is a screenshot of a small snippet of the number of members on the climate action plan task force. I wrote down, just to give you an idea of just how broad it was. Among the members, there were 3 city councilors. Members representing the business community, public and private education institutions, environmental and climate action advocacy groups. There was a Latinx community, Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde, Home Builders Association of Marion Polk County, the local industrial representatives, social justice organizations, nonprofits, a faith community person, Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, Oregon's largest electric utility was there, that's PGE, Oregon's largest natural gas utility, Northwest Natural, were there. We had a very broad-ranging, multi-opinionated, feisty group that presented there. And we had a lot of, it was good, and the product was really good. Was every time you have a stakeholder group like this, the final product is far better than had you not had one. A couple key points on there, and we came up with this both in the discussions and when we came to our council. The strategies in the climate action plan do not constitute mandates. They're just strategies. And the idea is that they're plans that you can use, you can follow, or not. You can make a conscious decision to follow this plan. If without a plan, it's hard to actually take the. It's like a ship with too many rudders and too many people calling order angle, calling out the angles. Also, climate action plan did not approve money. It was strategies. In fact, when the climate action plan was accepted by City Council, we did not have money for a climate action plan manager. This is a separate, different process, as you know. And the other thing is the political will to develop a plan is different than the political will to actually implement that plan, because you have to now account for all the trade-offs, funding, things like that. And we have a great climate action plan. Count them 183 strategies separated into 7 different categories. And I'll give you an example of what is in each of these. This is under the category transportation and land use, one of the 7. Within transportation and land use category, there are 42 of the 183 strategies contained there. For every strategy, so for every category, we have an overriding vision. The vision here includes that everybody should have access to safe, reliable, affordable transportation, and you can choose. Every category had a guiding equity principle that included, in this case, increasing active transportation choices in underserved neighborhoods and working with the underserved community as we develop the plan and implement the plan. Each category had one or more objectives. There were 7 objectives under transportation. This one increased safety of and access to active commute modes. You see the codes down there, transportation land use 1, 2, and 3. In summary, those basically improve network, improve safety, and improve the sidewalk. Each objective, each strategy has a greenhouse reduction potential. That's kind of a subjective view from subject matter experts, kind of in relation to other strategies you could implement. And there was kind of a low, medium, and high. A cost estimate, very rudimentary. $2 signs is between $200,000 and $500,000. $4 signs is something greater than $5 million to implement. So, and again, subject matter expertise. We did not do significant engineering. We didn't do a lot of detailed estimating for costs. Lead agency for all these three here is the city, but many of them included other players that Bearing, the Mass Transit Agency chariots. Sometimes I had to work with some of the utility providers, other jurisdictions, ODOT. Co-benefits. Every strategy has a certain amount of co-benefits in addition to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The dark blue is public health. The green is improving the local economy. Yellow is mobility choices. And the light blue has to do with community equity. There's another one not shown here, which has to do with environmental quality. So some things that you do, you get both the initial benefit targeted by that strategy, and other ones you do, there are co-benefits that go along with that. And those are identified for each of the 183 strategies. What's that?
Can you admit Counselor Glenn?
Oh, gosh.
Their side, just the light blue over vision.
All right.
She was, yeah, she must have got a kick or something.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, the time frame short, medium, and long. Basically, sometime within the next couple of years, 3 to 5 years, and beyond 5 years. So we did some complex modeling. Well, we paid somebody to do complex modeling. It was called the ClearPath model. It comes from the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, known as ICLEI. We had a great modeler. Modelers are interesting. What it did is it looked at took our baseline 2016 baseline and looked at trends in emissions, trends in transportation, trends in power demand, looked at different improvements, things that might be impacted by legislation, put it onto this model and tried to identify, so what happens? I have 2 scenarios to show you. This one, for orientation, those show the greenhouse gas emissions in metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. That's wastewater, residential electricity, commercial electricity, and then that's transportation. The stars are the goals council set, 50% there by 2035 and net zero by 2050. You'll see we span 2016 to 2050. So as you can see, the good news is that light gray hash, that shows how much emissions were avoided because we implemented strategies. We still did not quite get to our goal, and these are the entry points that got us there. Building efficiency more than 10%, transit ridership 4-fold, walking and bicycling 2 times, and then changes in traffic patterns. And with all of that, we got about a 40% reduction by 2035 in greenhouse gas emissions, and we're not greenhouse neutral by 2050, about 35%. So even with all of this, and we call it challenging but achievable, we still don't quite get there based on this model. So the natural question is, what do you have to do to get there? That was scenario number 2. Same list of things for scenario 2 included everything in scenario. Oh, sorry, there's reductions, and that's how much we avoid. Scenario 2 included everything in scenario 1 plus all of that. And that's how we would get there. So challenging, ambitious, we had other words for this thing, but that gives you an idea of the scale and scope that you have to do at the local jurisdiction to achieve very notable goals that are relatively common from other jurisdictions that I came across, and even one of the presented here, others. We presented the Climate Action Plan draft in December, and then the final one in February. And I talked about the comments. You can always tell how well you're doing when you get a lot of comments, and when the comments span a variety of opinions. We had 200 comments prior to the December presentation, City Council. We got 500 more from before, by the time we presented the final version to council in February 2022. I've got 3 samples for you to kind of show you what we got. This one, nice, noble, our responsibility, dutifully organize and lead with the capital city. Let's just do the right thing because we should set an example. Fair enough. Say again?
In the waiting room again.
Oh, heavens. Thanks. The other one, please don't make us do and make us pay for things we don't have any control over. There was a, somehow somebody thought that the word got around that we, the city council, was going to force people to get rid of their gas appliances and force people to buy electric. This is not true. The closest we came to that in our climate action plan was investigate incentives to do that. But a lot of the comments were saying, don't do that. Fair enough. And then we had, this is probably the farthest on whichever end you orient yourself. Then we had this one. I have been accused of a variety of things, but this is the first time I was accused of being a globalist, elitist tyrant. It was interesting. So, in my view, and Julianne had a conversation about this too, when you get comments that really span perspectives, it means your outreach has been good.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a perspective on that, you know, if you hang around people that think like you think, you tend to think everybody thinks like you think, which is wrong. And this was good from that perspective. The funny story about this is the subject line for this was so obscene that we had to ask for the city attorney to weigh in because everything's a public record. So what do you incorporate in the printed and the electronic record for this guy's comment was a guide. We got a reply back from legal that said, this is the most interesting subject line I've ever replied to. In the end, it was, we blanked out some of the references to bovine scatology and others. I will note that the author made an inadvertent reference to climate change and global climate warming. But there you go. So, some case studies. This is some of the fascinating things that show what you can do in the local level. Ithaca, New York, about 33,000 people. They have what they call the Green New Deal, based on some incentives, public information. They have some funding from grant funding, and they have bulk buying opportunities. They've made the deal that anybody who lives in Ithaca and anybody who has a business in Ithaca can apply and get weatherization, inspection, review, optimization. The idea is to reduce electricity and optimize your structure. Seattle looked at performance and improving performance of existing buildings. You'll notice that they were able to do that in part because they put $4.5 million every year into this thing. We talked about before, you want to make people pay for things. People will pay out of the goodness of their hearts only so far. So this is actually looking at existing commercial multifamily buildings. And then Madison, Wisconsin focused their efforts on underserved and low income multifamily housing. Similar, they call the Efficiency Navigator. They look at things that you can do for your home to reduce expenses. And this is a good time to talk about co-benefits. It's good for the environment. You do these things, you use less energy, reduce your global, like your greenhouse gas footprint. You also get a lower bill. That's a co-benefit. So again, that's one of the things, lessons learned we had for this. This is on energy. On transportation, Portland set aside some lanes for transit only. The view is that you're stuck in traffic in Portland and the bus just keeps going by and by and by. Los Angeles Metro is trying to find kind of like this hybrid idea between the call on demand, ride the one person, one car call in, and transit, which is a good thing, but it has an inflexible schedule you got to wait for. So what Los Angeles Metro did is called Micro Metro? Metro Micro. And it's basically, you can have a small van come and pick up a small group of people. So it's sort of a hybrid between van share, which is difficult to arrange, and on-demand single person riding occupancy. And the Washington DC had a voucher program for e-bikes. The idea is e-bikes. Some people don't ride bicycles because they're long distances and they're hills. And e-bikes is, anybody have an e-bike? It's like a superpower. I tell you, it's so great. You go to turbo and you're going up that hill. So that's what they had. They had vouchers that help people buy the bike, pay for maintenance, bought a lock, and this is maintenance for it. And they did both e-bikes and e-cargo bikes for people running errands or people with family. It was oversubscribed by a factor of 10. They had like 270 vouchers and they had 2,800 people apply for it. But that was the e-bike vouchers. Again, something a local government only a local government can do. Nature-based solutions. So I think Flagstaff had a really interesting idea is the coop and compost project. They would provide vouchers and discounts for pre-made, prefabricated chicken coops. They would also give compost bins, the idea to reduce food waste. And the waste stream is your food waste goes to chickens, chicken eats the food, what's left goes in your compost bin. You get eggs, you get fresh soil, reduce your carbon footprint. Pretty cool. And then Park City, this is one where you're not reducing your greenhouse gas emissions, you're actually increasing the ability of the property to take in greenhouse gases. Soil has an amazing absorptive capacity for greenhouse gases. And they work in partnership with I think it's a farmer rancher on open land, another rancher that do herds. And basically they took this large area and enhanced the soil and it did carbon uptake. So that's 8 of the 10. And let me talk about my favorite city, second favorite city in Oregon. So some of you know the story. Eugene, very ahead of the curve, if you will, banned natural gas hookups in new construction projects. I think it was new residential. About right before they did that, Berkeley tried to do the same thing, had done the same thing, and the Ninth Circuit Court said that's illegal, citing a 1970s law. In addition, there was a lot of uproar from the community about this ordinance that banned natural gas hookups. Many of us are familiar with the idea of a voter petition. The voter petition had a lot of signatures on it. It looked like it might have questions of legality because of the Ninth Circuit Court opinion, and so they banned it. And then I don't think it's an actual word, but they unbanned it less than a year later. And then the last of 10 examples, Dallas-Fort Worth. So it's like the 12th largest city in the country. It's like the 5th largest city in Texas. They have never adopted an environmental master plan, despite it's been on the books for I think 5 years now. And even if they did, that doesn't address climate change or resiliency. They have no plan, and in my view, no action plan equals no action. So again, I start with all the good stuff, but this is what can happen if you do not have an action plan. So lessons learned. This is kind of fun. And Julie and I talked about this. We reviewed some of the case studies and some of our own perceptions, what we've heard from the community. We talked about this already. It needs to have some kind of local benefit. The co-benefits we talked about. It's great to reduce, to have a higher efficiency in your building because that's good for the climate, saves the planet. But it really is nice when you get a lower bill. That's an example of a co-benefit. It has to be subsidized in some way. Grants, whatever incentives can be provided. The e-bike is the best example of subsidizing a project or an idea. If you look at some of the projects that we are doing at the local level for city of Salem, they're subsidized by grants. We talked a little bit about collaboration before. There are a lot of advantages to collaboration. Sometimes you have to have a thick skin or a good sense of humor. But the task force was really good because you hear a lot of different views and you realize those views are coming from people you're working with. You also build partnerships when you know the people you're working with better. Most of our require our actions, our strategies require partnerships of some kind or another. And by working together, you don't really aim for everybody to agree, but you aim for a decision that is informed, that people have an idea they're involved. And sometimes the process is as important or more important than the actual product. Keep a local context. I do not think Salem would do well with a chicken coop and compost program. It might, but I think an e-bike voucher program might fit. So you're looking at what fits with your community. What can you do? Where do you get the buy-in? Where do you not? So the idea is keep a local context. And the last one is be nimble. When Julie and I met with the mayor right before I went to this conference, talking about what are the advantages that a local government has over state, federal, county, other ones. And the first thing he says, we are nimble, which is true. Specifically for Salem, it takes 5 counselors to make a decision. That's a good thing. It also it takes 5 counselors to change a decision. But that nimbleness is an advantage that local governments have more so than, as far as I can tell, any other government initiative or agency. Talk about the highlights of where we are at this point. We do have a full-time climate action plan manager. I don't know. I think this number's gone up in grant funding that we have gotten. We have started over half the climate action strategies. I think the number of strategies completed is now 15.
Yeah, we just got 120 million. I mean, that's not all coming to us.
Okay, so
we're part of it.
Yes, it is not 120 million, it's 20 million.
Oh, 20 million. We're gonna get 120 million.
You know,
Pretty awesome.
Mayor, I don't know. But I saw, you should have seen how big your eyes got.
120 million, 20 million.
Right, yeah, the $20 million grant that we're partners with the city of Tualatin,
Yeah.
is again partnerships. And a portion of that money will be going toward, actually it was not, no, it was 15 million. 15 million, I'm just getting a look over here.
Stop, the number's going down.
So, but there are 2 things. 15 million partnership with Tualatin that involves increase in the number of electric vehicle charging stations in the region. It's a regional partnership. 20 million is a grant application we have submitted, and that addresses resiliency and conservation measures, primarily targeting low-income areas. So there's a lot there. So before I finish, so at the tail end of the paper Julie and I wrote, I just read parts of it that talks about why local government and what we do is so important and why we have strengths that are not present in other agencies. The final assessment, local governments have an agility to take actions in the community that is not present at the federal and state levels. It is both an advantage and a disadvantage that in a local government, a small number of elected officials can have a significant impact on the community's direction. I talked about it. In Salem, for example, there's 1 vote each for the mayor and the 8 city councilors. This means it only takes 5 members of the Salem City Council to form a majority necessary to enact an ordinance or direct the professional staff to embark on a particular course of action. Lastly, it is the local government that has the closest connection to the members of the community. By virtue of their size and proximity, local governments are uniquely positioned to engage with the community stakeholders in climate actions, to work in close collaboration with nonprofit and other community organizations to leverage resources, and to initiate and terminate a program, a project, a plan, or a policy. I noted also that we provide essential public services that touch virtually every individual in the community, even if the majority don't even know it. And the degree that we are able to provide these benefits adds to our credibility when we work with our community on difficult decisions and what we have to do. And that really is a strength, in my view, the strongest hand held by local governments. I think that was it. That's a presentation I gave. Thank you for the opportunity to go.
How was it received?
It was received pretty well. It was there were several questions that came up from the assembled scientists and researchers. And one of them was something about how it's being funded. Something more about it was you have this big emphasis on bicycles, like my example here. Isn't that expensive? And where's your money coming from? I talked a little about local government funding and implementation. Those are the key questions that I recall. Juliana's counterpart at Gainesville talked about their climate action plan, and I discovered it actually, she's a very optimistic person, and you have to be a good climate action. But she talked about this climate action plan, all the initiatives, all the great things. It's not yet been adopted. And asked about feedback they've had, and it's all been positive, and it's not actually come for a decision by their decision-making board yet. So we'll see how it plays out. But Gainesville's, one of the good questions from to the Gainesville person was, how are you doing this in the state of Florida?
Yeah.
And Gainesville they have a big problem. They have their utility district has been now under a 5-person governor-appointed committee. That has been so we should also be very grateful for where we are.
Great mayor. Great mayor too,
Yes.
Harvey.
She talked about the mayor. It was a mayor's initiative to get this thing going.
Yeah. Using the Bloomberg program.
Oh, okay.
And it's a college town, so it's like a little bit of an island in the middle of Florida,
Actually, my
And it might be. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on to climate action plan updates. Juliana?
Thank you. Juliana Douglas, Connection Plan Manager. So I'm gonna go through these. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to interject. So on the update on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, or the EECBG, we submitted our application in April of this year, and they had quite a big backlog, so we only just got that award agreement signed end of September. So, and then when that went out in April, we had submitted an RFP, and unfortunately that didn't come back successfully. The scope of work was really big, and so the costs were just not in alignment with the funding coming in. So we went back and we significantly realigned the scope of the RFP to meet the budget. And so we have that RFP was set out, and we are currently reviewing. There are 6 bids in for this time. Last time there were only 2, and we expect to have selected a consulting firm and begin work in early 2025. So something that goes hand in hand with that, trying to align as many of our strategy progresses as possible. This is the Strategic Energy Management program through Energy Trust of Oregon. We got enrolled for City of Salem buildings in their territory. The biggest benefit of this is the energy savings incentives. So for each kilowatt hour, we can save 2 cents, and for each therm, we can save 20 cents. And this program goes for 12 to 15 months, and we can enroll of the program. Then we additionally get up to 5 payments of $1,000 for milestone incentives. These are for things like enrolling buildings in the Energy Star Performance Manager, known as Better Buildings, or things like creating an internal green team. So we can get up to $5,000 that way. They provide up to $10,000 for support of an intern, and that can actually go along with some of the other internship fundings that we have and split the scope of work of interns. And then that just goes towards conducting some of those activities. And then they also pay for building operator certifications up to $1,400. Then the really important part of this is similar to, actually it's modeled off of Seattle's and then later state of Washington's building energy performance standards. The state of Oregon in House Bill 3409 adopted building performance standards. And so it would help leverage us and our ability to be eligible for early compliance consent. That one didn't align right, sorry. And then we have, for those building performance standards, just a quick overview so we're all on the same page. They're looking at tier 1 buildings being non-residential. And that one is anything over 35,000 square feet, and it can meet compliance requirements by either meeting the ASHRAE 100 energy use intensity target or by investment criteria pathway. Buildings are very expensive to retrofit, so in understanding that not all buildings will be able to meet those standards, they have a pathway to compliance via investing certain funding into the highest energy saving revenues. And then for tier 2 buildings, those will be required to conduct benchmarking. And then there is still comment on it might be a requirement for those to meet compliance at a later iteration. This is still in the public comment period. It ends November 15th at 5 p.m. And then again, in this, they have incentives for early compliance. Are there any questions? We had a couple campaigns that were internally focused. So the first one is on the employee idle reduction campaign. I want to acknowledge some of the partners internally. So this was helped with fleet services and with employee wellness. And some of the consistent minimal idlers, I wanted to give a shout out to them because while they aren't getting a lot of emissions reductions, they've had low emissions. So definitely want to make sure that they are acknowledged, including planning division, Center 50 Plus and the library, IT operations, and then for fire, both training and prevention division. And that is correlated with use, but they're not idling a lot. So I want to still acknowledge them for that. And then we have most improved by idling percentages. In July, it was building and safety. In August, fire emergency operations. In September, wastewater treatment. And then some honorable mentions. The police patrol division reduced emissions by 1,500 fewer than in summer of 2023, and that's from just idling. And then for community service parks maintenance, that was nearly 500 fewer emissions or fewer gallons for idling than in the previous summer.
And that's basically just through education, right? It's just telling people, or
We didn't survey, so I don't know if they innately wanted to turn off that engine or if they had seen some of our engagement and had reduced that. One of the notes I had earlier about the internal green team, that could help with a lot of this. Me telling people or asking people really nicely if they would like to reduce their emissions is different from it being somebody on their division or in their group somehow and being like, hey, remember we're turning off our engines when we aren't actively using the vehicle kind of thing. So hopefully it'll not only meet a STEM requirement, but it could also help further some of our initiatives and other employee-focused campaigns.
We incorporate kind of a competition too, right? Is the incentive for this?
Yeah, I don't know how well known it was. So again, definitely have some room to go.
you gotta quit talking about the downsides.
Sorry.
My whole point was we did very little outreach and we still attained some nice goals. And
Absolutely.
that's what I think we need to be celebrating those things. So my point is if we can do something like a green team or do a little bit more, those numbers will just blossom.
Absolutely. Sorry, I will
All right.
re-optimist you. Focus it
Yeah,
back.
like geez, Debbie Downer. You did good work. Celebrate it.
And then our Get There challenge. Oh, sorry. Any other questions on that? Okay. Get There challenge was the employee trip reduction campaign. This was September.
Again, a total failure. No.
This one was September 16th or 22nd, and I think one of the main reasons for lower participation than last year was actually because last year it was 2 weeks long. So my suggestion for continued success is to have either multiple campaigns or longer campaigns, even if it is not in alignment with ODOT or Oregon Department of Transportation. There were 76 members enrolled, 21 of them were new members, so we did get more people enrolled this year. And then that was 569 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions equivalency avoided through participation in this challenge. To see what that looks like, Actually would really love to just promote their dashboard. It's available year round, and it allows people to log their trips. They can actually remember what trips they had. So if you log in, it can say like, this is a trip that you frequently take. And so it's really quick and easy to log those trips. And so this shows what the trips were. The normal, about 60% did active transit. So that was walking, bicycling, or e-biking. 20% used carpool, 14% used transit, 5% used remote work. And then because people can log it year round, there actually are some people who do. So we see the huge spike in September at the bottom graph, but some people have been using it more consistently, and they can log them once a month. And so if people were interested, it could be a really great tracking tool. But it allows people to log those, and from what we have, mostly since January, this was pulled last Wednesday, was 42% active transit, 37% transit, 7% carpool, and 8% remote work. And then coupling that with a employee commuter options survey, caveat, there were only 14 respondents, so this isn't statistically relevant, but it does give a little bit of some insight. We asked people what their barriers were. 9 said bus route, 7 said bus schedule. We asked what incentives would help them. This first one I want to say, with our Get There challenge, we had employee wellness helped us out with some incentives. There were Wellable points as well as employee wellness swag. And then the state had a bunch of high-end prizes that were able to be won. And actually one of our staff members won one of the $100 gift certificates. So, but yes, most people, 8 respondents said that they would like regular prize drawings, so something that might be able to be leveraged there. And then 6 people said that they were interested in free or discounted bus passes. And then using a free online trip commute cost calculator, respondents said that there would give like a number of how much their monthly commute costs, and that averaged to $93. Similarly, they were asked to have their trip origins and destinations, and the average distance of the one-way commute is 5 miles. So, any questions on?
I'm stuck on the right.
Okay.
Like we need a signature. No, there's nothing for you to explain. I get it. I'm just stuck there personally.
I think they might want a sticker card.
There's no more free grocery bags. Right? Oh. She's laughing. Why is anybody else laughing?
So we conducted some summer community outreach around conservation. We distributed nearly 200 kits between indoor watering, outdoor watering, and energy conservation. And then we attended 10 events, 3 community-wide events, 3 neighborhood association events, 3 organization events, and 1 Marion County event. And at the Marion County Sustainable Business Network, we actually got the Oregon Department of Energy and Energy Trust of Oregon to do a seminar on the building performance standards for our Sustainable Business Network. So hopefully that can help spur some overall awareness about that program, and also help people get on those early adoption incentives. So here's what everybody alluded to before. Here are all of the actual numbers. I put it in order from least to most money. The inline hydroelectric turbine was awarded, and then because we have leveraged that funding, we are going to apply for the project development assistance incentives. through Energy Trust of Oregon. It has a match requirement, so having those stepwise was intentional. And then we have the Energy Conservation Block Grant, which we gave an update on, the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant, just to elaborate a little bit on what Robert said earlier, that 15 million since City Manager Keith Daly signed on the regional agreement, and that was early 2023. They weren't successful in that first round. This was the second round that they were successful in. That will assure that we get at least 25 charging ports, and they are targeting low income multifamily. So we did the University of Oregon Sustainable City Year program, and they helped us with a kind of framework for EV adoption incentives. And so they actually had some mapping done that was around where charging deserts were. And so we're going to look at overlaying that with where multifamily is and see what we can get to help get those correctly placed so then we can have as much usage as possible. And then last Monday, you all approved the application submission for the Environmental and Climate Justice Community Change Grant. Are there any questions on any?
You look like it.
And then I just sent this on Friday afternoon. I don't need any comments back until November 15th, so then it can get on the December council agenda for a staff report. This is the 2024 Climate Action Plan annual report. I have a couple copies in paper, trying to be mindful of that. If people need them, they're more than welcome to have them. Otherwise, I have the digital copy that I can send people.
And this is one where she's really looking for us to step up our comments soon, so we can get it on that agenda. I had asked her to get number in time for December meeting, so we could be sure and
So how would you like comments? Email to you, or do you want to? One that I marked up all kind, because I made a lot of notes on the PDF, not a lot, but a few.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Whatever you have, I will figure out how to get those all incorporated.
Okay.
great, that'll work. And you need them by when?
I think November 15th is in your email forever. Just have that. Thank you.
That's all right.
And so just a couple snapshot statistics, 53% of strategies have made progress towards implementation, 8% are complete. Again, there was an additional one completed since Robert asked for the poll a couple months ago. And then we have a 9% decrease in strategies with no progress. Progress was made on all 13 of the strategies identified in the 2024, in the 2024 work plan. And then there was additional strategy progress on 12 that weren't identified, but they were just able to be moved on. That is all I have. I did just want to point out real quick, the 2025 meeting schedule, I'll be sending out requests soon, but we're going to change that to the second Monday of even month. Okay. Questions or comments?
Councilor Gonzalez or Councilor Gwynn, do you have questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to I mean, from being on this committee for a couple of years and to see the progress is just impressive. You know, so just congrats to all the staff. It's a great job. Great job.
Thank you, Councilor. Yeah, this will be a climate action plan meeting for the three of us at least. So I just wanted to take a minute and thank you for all of your great work, and Robert as well. I think you guys have sort of taken this nebulous, unfunded idea to the next level, and I really have appreciated your great work and really stepped up our game. All of this progress is due to your work, not ours. So thank you.
I agree. Add much to that.
Anything else? I think that concludes our agenda items. If nobody has any other comments, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.